This is heck.
No, man.
One question.
One question? Why wouldn't you?
You gonna keep going?
Good afternoon.
Let's get it.
Okay, this is really weird for me because I don't get invited very often to come to speak at a Christian school. I get invited to go be on a panel and I get invited to a lot of debates, but I hardly ever get invited to come speak at a Christian school. So I'm honored, I'm a little bit nervous, but let me just set your mind at ease. I am not here to ruin anybody's faith. That is not what I was invited by Coach Heron to come share my story, tell you a little bit about myself, and allow you to ask me questions. Okay? So, that's what we're going to do. I think one reason why I don't get invited to speak at more Bible classes is because a lot of times people think that atheists are evil people and devil worshippers, and that's not the case, and that we're out to ruin people's faith, and that's not it. Listen, if you believe that there's a God, the Bible's true, and when you die you're going to go to heaven, that's wonderful for you. I don't want to try to change your belief on that. I just have a problem when people say that it's actually true, because I mean, if you can convince me that there is a God who loves me, and He's got a purpose for my life, and there's a place to go, heaven, when I die, I would love to think about that being true, but I just don't see any evidence for it. And then, as I talk to religious people, most religious people that I talk with, they're not very thoughtful. They like to use mantras, like, God said it, I believe it, that settles it. Or if it's in the Bible, then you don't question the Bible. But maybe you guys are different. Coach Heron had a lot of good things to say about you, so maybe you guys are different. Maybe you're thoughtful. Maybe you got some really good questions, and we can talk about that. All right. Let me tell you my story. I can relate to going to church because I went to church when I was younger all the time. I went to church. And when I got to college, one of my roommates asked a very tough question. He said that he wanted to know why a loving, all-powerful, all-knowing, all-good God would allow babies to be born with cancer. And I thought about it, and I'm like, well, I don't know. And he said, well, even if God exists, He's not good, because God could stop it if He wanted to. And so I'm like, okay, I don't have an answer for that, but I wasn't an atheist. Well, then I started studying history. And as I studied history, I learned that early on, a lot of people couldn't explain where they would have thunder. They would hear thunder. And they would say, oh, what is that? What's that rumbling? Oh, the gods must be angry. And then through the advancement of science, we now can explain thunder, so we don't need God as an explanation for thunder. Also, when there would be earthquakes, the earth would rumble, and people couldn't explain this, and they were like, oh no, the gods are fighting, and they're tearing up the earth. Well, we know it wasn't the gods fighting. We now know through the study of scientific plate tectonics that the plates shift, and it causes the earthquake. So we don't need God as an explanation. And then when it rained, people would say, oh, the goddesses are crying. The goddesses are crying. And so that's how they explain the rain. Now we know through, again, science that goddesses are not crying. That we know how raindrops fall. So what I'm saying is that the more we learn, the less we need God as an explanation. What a lot of religious people do is they plug in God for a gap. And I started plugging in the gap where they didn't know. I started thinking about this, but I still wasn't an atheist. I was still holding on to my belief. However, one of my other classmates who claim to be an atheist asked me if I had ever read the Bible. And I have to say, well, no, really hadn't. So I started thinking, if I'm going to be this religious person I was brought up, I better read the Bible. And as I began to read the Bible, I mean, there's some great stories in the Bible. Don't get me wrong. I think there are some great stories. There's some horrible stories, too. And as I began to study it, I'm like, why haven't I heard this story in Sunday school? They always tell the David and Goliath story, the David and Goliath's den. But this story, I mean, what are they hiding? And so it was at that point I began to question the validity of the Bible, and I learned how it came about, and know that it cannot be from God because the morality in it is horrible. And so it was at that point I walked away from Christianity, and now I would say that I'm an atheist. But I will say this too, I could be wrong. Maybe I missed something. Maybe there is a God. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But I'm willing to admit that I could be wrong. So again, I was invited here to interact with you guys, to take questions, and hopefully have a good dialogue. So there's my story. So who would like to go first? What questions do you have for me? Not everybody speak at once now.
I got one.
Okay, hold up. And your name is?
Heath, right?
Heath, nice to meet you. What question or comment do you have for me, sir?
How do you think the world was created?
Okay, it's interesting that you use that word created.
Right.
So that implies a creator. Do you think it would be better to say, how do I think the world came about?
Sure.
Okay, fair enough. That's a great question. I don't know. We got some people that are working on it. But here's the great thing about science. Science allows us to say we don't know. That's what drives science. The not knowing helps us to drive science because we want to search for answers. What I find with religious people is that when they say they don't know, they'll say, I don't know, but God did it. And what that does is a science stopper. So I don't know where it came from. Do you?
No.
Okay, fair enough. That's all I'm saying. But you think God did it?
I mean, I think so.
But you just believe that. You don't know that.
I mean, I don't know for sure.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that. Yes, sir. Everyone, your name is?
Landon Sylvie.
Landon Sylvie. Nice to meet you. What question or comment do you have for me, sir?
How you look for answers, to believe God is real?
Yeah, I have looked.
Like,
I just told you I can't. The evil, the history, how people plugged in. Yeah, but I'm open. Maybe I missed something. Do you think I missed something? What did I miss? Okay, do you believe in God?
yes,
Okay, do you believe in God or do you know there's a God?
I believe in God. Oh, I know. I take that back. I do know there's a God.
You know there's a God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, if you know something, then you can show me the evidence so I can know too.
Right.
All right.
I don't have the evidence on me.
Okay, so you don't know, you just believe.
I feel like I have evidence if I have to look for it.
Like what? What counts as evidence? What are you talking about? What has convinced you? What evidence have you looked at?
So yeah, I guess I believe in God.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Now let me ask you this. Could you be wrong in your belief?
Like my belief in God could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm saying could. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying could it be wrong?
Yeah, I could be wrong.
Okay, thank you. That's all I'm asking. Okay, so you don't know there's a God, you just believe there's a God. Okay. Yes, ma'am. And your name is?
Abby McGardner.
Abby, nice to meet you. What question or comment do you have for me?
So you were talking about like all the lightning and the earthquakes and stuff. You had an explanation for that. What about like the earth? Like, what about the creation of the earth? Like, what's the explanation for that?
Well, I think that's similar to what
Oh.
this gentleman said. Is I don't know. Are you talking about how we got here?
Like,
How the
like,
universe got
the
here?
atmosphere, like all the earth, like the planets and the stars. Like, what's your explanation?
Well, I don't know how it all began at the very beginning. If that's what you're asking, that's what we're still working on. That's called the science of cosmology, and we've got some great scientists working on it. But I don't. The science allows us to say we don't know in certain ways. So this is one of those where I would say I don't know, but we're looking for answers. That's what drives science.
So when God says He created the heavens and the earth, like why isn't that enough proof for no? Like if it's
Because I don't believe in God. So He couldn't have said it if He doesn't exist, right? See,
like,
do you know there's a God or believe there's a God?
I believe there's a God.
So you could be wrong. You could be wrong. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying you could be wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. You could be. So could I. I'm pointing that out too. So could I. All right. Yes, ma'am. And your name is
Bailey.
Bailey. What question or
Okay,
comment do you have?
so Christians, like, obviously, you know, we say we're put on this earth to, like, glorify God. Like, if you don't believe in God, then what, like, why are you here? Like, what's your purpose on earth?
What's my purpose? Oh, good question. My purpose is that I have one life to live. I got to make the best of it because I don't get a second chance. So are you saying if I don't have a belief in God, I don't have purpose for my life? I mean, I love my wife. I love my children. I pay my taxes. I'm a good citizen.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Like, so, like, as a Christian, like, our purpose is to glorify God.
Okay.
So, what's your purpose? Like, in life, like.
To live life to the fullest and be the best husband, citizen I can be because I only have one life to live, and when this is over, it's over. Okay, thank you. Oh, yes, ma'am. And your name is? Jalen. What question or comment do you have for me?
So, after you die, where do you think that you go?
Okay, great question. In the ground.
Like, what about like your soul and
I don't believe there's a soul. Okay, so for example, if I turn my computer off, the screen goes off. It doesn't go to computer heaven. I'm an advanced machine.
But you can turn the computer back on. You can't
Correct.
turn back on after you
That's
die.
right. So when I die, I go in the ground.
We gotta sleep.
I go to ground. It's over. That's it. I got one shot. So I got to make sure I do the best that I can with this one life that I have. Okay, yes, this gentleman right here. And your name is? Christian. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. What question or comment do you have for me, Christian?
So, why do you think human life is comparable to a machine?
It's an advanced, really advanced machine. Yeah, so I was just an illustration here.
So do you think one day there could be computers advanced enough to imitate a human?
Sure, possibly.
But, okay. So where I'm going with this is like, if we were to ask computers where they think we go when we die, what do you think they would say? If they've ever been turned off and if they've ever been like destroyed and rebuilt, where if you were to ask them where they go?
Well, I have. As a matter of fact, I've asked Alexa.
Oh, okay.
And she says she has no view about the afterlife. It's really strange.
Okay.
So,
Also, okay, another question.
okay,
I just forgot. Okay.
come back to you.
Yes.
Okay, somebody else. Yes, ma'am. And your name is?
Ramsey.
Ramsey, what question or comment do you have for me?
Okay, so how are you like functioning and doing everything you do? Like if we just came from no creator, like nobody created you perfectly or whatever. Like how are you being it? Like how are you able to do what you can do? Like move and like your body's like perfectly like put together and your heart. No, like your heart works this way, your lungs work this way, and it's all like in the correct order and everything.
Yeah.
And then nobody like created you.
Yeah. Evolution.
We explain.
So you think
Yeah,
that
sure. Okay,
That doesn't make sense.
I can prove evolution. I'm gonna prove it right now. You ready?
Yeah.
Would you agree with me that you were once a infant, and then you became a toddler? You learned how to walk, right? Now you're a teenager. Eventually you become adult. Aren't you changing over time? That's evolution.
Okay, but what
People
about
observed you. We can test that. All of us did that. That's observable. That's evolution. Change over time. That's all it is.
Okay, but like back then they like had a heart and a lungs and all that, and it worked. So I mean, it's the same.
Yeah.
So you don't make sense.
I'm not sure I'm following you. I'm not sure I'm following you.
Okay, so you know how like your brain works and like everything like works like so like a body like it's crazy if you think about it like how everything goes and everything and if nobody created you like perfectly then how like are you like I don't know.
So
I need
you
to
think-
pick up what I'm thinking.
Okay, so you think, let me make sure I understand. You think that God created the human body perfect. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and it like works a certain
Why
way
does it get diseases?
because like there's bad things in the world.
Well, couldn't God have done a little better job of creating to give us a body that didn't get disease?
No, there's sin.
Oh, sin. Oh, okay. Yeah, what do you mean by sin?
Can somebody help me?
Wait, so do you not believe in sin?
Sin is a sin. What do you mean by sin? I need to know what we're talking about here.
Doing something
Like
you know
there's
is wrong.
like
Doing
this
something
world is
wrong?
fallen.
Have I ever done something wrong?
I know, but like, do you
Yes.
not believe in asking like forgiveness
For what?
for your sins?
God created
Okay,
us perfect.
I've never killed anybody. I've never
Okay,
robbed
but-
any banks. As a matter of fact, there's not one thing that a Christian can do that I can't do as well. Can you give money to the poor?
Yeah.
I can too.
But
Why do I have to believe in God in order to do good things?
you don't.
Okay. That's all I'm saying. I can do good things without a belief in God. You don't need God to do good. But you do need God. I mean, some of the most evil people are religious people.
So, but do you not feel bad when you do
Yes.
bad things? But how do you like?
I go to that person and say, look, I shouldn't have called you that. That was mean. I'm sorry. See, atheists can be empathetic. We can be sorry. We don't have to have a God to tell us what's right and wrong. We know these things.
Back to my thing. Wait, hold on. And like farther down the road, because you said evolution. So are humans going to be different in the future? Because you said like people change.
Well, it could be. I mean, he brought up, could humans, be advanced as machines? And, I don't know. It's hard to say.
So like my people, like my ancestors, are different than me.
I don't know. I've never
Like-
met them. Well, I think we're different because of evolution. Change over time. That's all it is.
No.
Yes.
I mean,
change
how
over
does a
time.
heart just grow inside of you then? Like it just puts it just.
No, I didn't say that. I said things change over time, and I gave you an example. I didn't say things pop into existence. I did not say that.
Okay, then where did it
Okay,
come from?
Okay, that's the question that I said we don't know the answer to. That's what we're working on.
Because you don't know.
That's right. All right, so where did everything come from?
God.
Okay, wait a minute. Do you know that, or do you just believe it?
I mean, I don't have I wasn't there when it
Okay,
happened.
me neither. So you would have to say that you just believe that.
Okay, but I make sense and you don't.
But I'm honest. I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay. Someone else. Someone else? Okay. Christian.
Okay. So, since you believe there's like no sinning, if we were to
Well, let me say this. The concept of sin, I believe, was developed by religious people to keep people in line.
Okay. So, if the world was like run by atheists, do you think it would be like the crime system would be any different? Like if somebody were to kill somebody, you think there would be like shorter or longer jail sentences?
I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't matter if just because a person is an atheist doesn't mean they can't do good. And they can do evil too. And Christians can do good and they can do evil.
So, if there's like no eternal consequence to murder, and there's no measurable unit for a human life, what's the point of it all?
What's the point of
Well, not at all, but like,
What's the point of what? Living?
sure.
Because this is the only life I have. And I'm going to live it to the best I can. And I'm going to live it to the fullest. Because I only have that. I don't have afterlife. And I think a lot of Christians spend too much time thinking about the next life and not even living for this one.
Adam, can you ask something? You're smart.
Someone else? Oh, okay. This young lady right here has not asked a question. And your name is?
Emma.
Emma, nice to meet you. What question or comment do you have for me?
So you don't believe in like the Ten Commandments where we get like most of our laws from
Okay.
here. Like then what's your like moral staple? Like why do you think murder's bad?
Okay. So let me make sure I understand what you're saying. I just want to make sure, so let me feed it back to you. Are you saying that morality comes from the Bible?
Mine do, like whatever your.
Okay, good question. All right, so I had to clarify that. Now, the morals, of course it's wrong to kill somebody. All right, of course it's wrong to be mean and torture somebody. And there's a thing called empathy where I don't want someone to do that to me. And if we went around murdering everybody and chopping them up and stuff like that, then our society wouldn't survive. Our species, humanity, would not survive. So it's in our best interest not to go around murdering and killing each other. Of course some people do that, and we throw them in jail. But I've got one further question. And I think I can demonstrate that your morality does not come from the Bible. In the book of Leviticus, it says that we are to stone homosexuals. Do you think we should do that today?
No.
Why not?
It's also murder.
So, but that's in the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anybody that has not spoken yet? Alex, have you spoke?
No, sir.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. And your name is?
Alex Red.
Alex Wren. Nice to meet you. What question or comment do you have for me, sir?
All right, so do you believe in the Big Bang as an atheist?
What do you mean by Big Bang? How are you defining that?
Well, from what I've seen in the atheist world, they believe that there was just an explosion and then all life, or not all life, but all the planets came to be. But I was seeing if you believe in that because...
Okay, being a scientific person, you got part of that right, but not all of it. Technically, the Big Bang is just the beginning of the universe. So even Christians can believe in the Big Bang. They can believe, I think Christians believe that the universe had a beginning. Well, that's all the Big Bang is. So if you're asking me, do I believe in the beginning of the universe? Sure.
All right,
Because that seems where the science is pointing.
From a non-Christian standpoint, how did the beginning happen?
That's the question. Very good. That's the question that we don't know the answer to yet, because the math seems to break down when we get closer and closer to the beginning of the Big Bang. But we don't know. But we're fine with not knowing. That's what drives science. But religious people say, well, God did it, we don't know, and so they just stop science.
One thing that gets me is that most people would say before everything created there was nothing, but then they would like to also say that two particles collided and it created a massive explosion to create
Okay,
planets.
now, you said before
Before the beginning.
Okay, wait, stop right there. There is no before. You can't say before the beginning because that would imply something else. The beginning is the beginning, so there can't be anything before the beginning, right? Because before is a time word, but there was no time. Because space, matter, and time came into existence at the Big Bang. That's Einstein's theory of relativity, which it talks about. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Whenever you keep saying yet, like about like we haven't found out yet, what do you think they like would have found it out by now?
Maybe.
So
But there's a lot of things we haven't discovered yet. And that's what drives science. We love the not knowing, the curious mind. Just think back then if they would have just given up and said, I don't know, God did it, and we wouldn't have science. But the knowledge is the gaps, that's what drives science. But Christians just stop, I don't know, God did it.
I mean, yeah, but like we like know where it came from.
Wait,
We don't know.
know or believe?
Believe.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we believe where it came from was God, but y'all say y'all don't know yet.
Yeah. Not too many Christians say, I don't know. They say they know, but in reality, they don't. They believe. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Y'all believe too.
No, I don't. I just said I don't know.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So, have you ever had like a Christian say like it's all part of God's plan? Like, how does that make you feel when somebody says that?
I'd say no. Not all of it. Because they're assuming. Okay.
Like when something bad happens, you're like, oh, it's just all part of God's plan.
Yeah, all right, let me ask you a question. Do you remember when this summer when they had the school shooting up in Texas? Suppose you had the power. Let's just say you knew this was just going to happen, and you had the power to jam the gun and stop that shooter from killing those little kids. Would you have done it? Oh, well, you're nicer than God, aren't you?
I mean, no.
Do you think you are nicer than God? Do you think God had the power to stop him?
Yeah.
Do you think God could have stopped him if he wanted to?
Yeah, but
Did God stop him? But you said you would. You're nicer than
But
God.
God gives us the choice to choose what we want to do.
Does God have a choice to stop evil if he wants to?
I mean, I guess He does. But He gave that person the choice to choose if they wanted to kill all the kids.
I would have stopped him. If I could, if I knew, if I had the power. I would stop him. And you would, so I would rather you be God.
There's no way we can do
I would rather you be God than this mean God if he
But
exists.
she doesn't have all the knowledge as he does.
I know, I'm
He
saying,
is the all-knowing.
if she did, would she stop him? And she said yes.
But our sin.
Yeah, but we're in a world full of sin, so either way, like God gives us that choice to choose what we want to do.
Fair enough. Someone else? All right, Alex, got a couple more minutes here.
All right. So you said that there were stories that you read where God was a cruel and unforgiving God, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Like the Noah's Ark story. Yeah, flooding everything that ever exists, drowning it, even little babies. Not really a sign of love, but go ahead.
what about the advancements of the atomic bomb that killed hundreds of thousands of people, made by science?
Yes, you're right. That's a bad thing. You're right. Absolutely.
Or the advancements in science that are allowing for chemical warfare that is killing people overseas. Is that
that's
not
some misuse.
scientific?
Absolutely.
Why don't they?
But
stop?
but science is not necessarily to blame on that part. It's obviously we have the technology to do that, and people do that. They should.
But how is science not to blame? Because it's the only it's the only thing that can make it. I can't.
Well,
I can't without a knowledge of science go and.
Well, it's not,
a
science is not a
bomb.
person that's behind it building bombs.
I know it's not,
Okay.
but I'm saying it's the.
It's the
system.
individual that misuses the technology that we have. Okay, just like the technology that we have for guns, someone could use that to protect themselves, or they could go into an elementary school and they could shoot it up with the guns. It's not the gun's fault, right? It's the individual behind it, right? Okay. Let me ask you this: suppose you were a dad and you had a 5-year-old son, and your son disobeyed you. Would you drown him?
No.
Well, wait a minute. There was little children that drowned in the flood. All right, let me ask you this: would you burn him if your child disobeyed you? Would you burn him? Okay, you would. So God burns people for all of eternity that don't want to follow Him in hell.
But God also gives us free will. He gave us the choice to choose. He's not going to force something upon us that we don't want.
Okay, let me ask you this:
That was good.
do you think that God knows what it would take to convince me that He exists?
Yes.
Do you think that God actually loves me?
Yes.
Do you think that God should do everything He can to convince me, because I'm open to it, that He exists? If He knows what I would accept and the evidence that I would accept and that I'm open to it, then why doesn't He present that? Because if I stand before God, if there is a God, and He says, why didn't you believe? And I said, God, I used my brain. I was a scientist. I looked at all the evidence, and I did not. I just wasn't convinced by the evidence, but I did the best I could. He's going to burn me for all of eternity.
We weren't looking at the
So,
right
but
things.
I'm not saying that it's correct that He should punish you for all eternity for not believing in Him. But like I said, He didn't force it upon you. He knows what could turn you back to Christianity. He could turn you back to Christianity, but He gave you the free will to choose, and that is the right of every human being in His eyes.
That's where you.
Well, I'm not
choose
rejecting
yourself.
it. I'm saying I'm open to it, and I haven't seen the evidence. If I told you at the beginning, if I was convinced that there was a God who loved me, I believe. But I haven't seen any evidence. All I've heard is stories and people saying, well, what about this and what about that? But I just haven't seen anybody give me evidence. I've heard people say they know, but in reality they believe. So I'm just not convinced. But I'm open to it. That's one of the reasons why I came here. If I wasn't open, I wouldn't have accepted Coach Aaron's invitation. I ain't talking about Bible class.
Have we affected your opinion at all?
No. No, because I haven't seen any evidence yet. One or two more. Yes, ma'am.
So now, do you know or do you believe that God isn't real?
Okay. Now, see, there's the trick that you're doing, because you're assuming that atheists have beliefs, and it depends on what you mean by belief. Okay. So, for example, that the way science works is, okay, I have a hypothesis. My hypothesis is that when you drop things, they fall. Okay. So let me test it. Okay, I was right there. Maybe I won't be right next time. Okay, but now, since I've tested it, I could probably come up with a theory that says every time I drop this pencil, it will fall to the ground. Now, suppose I drop it the 100th time and it just stops in midair, it starts floating. Then I'm like, okay, now wait a minute. Why did it not fall to the ground this time? Maybe there's some unknown scientific theory that I haven't discovered that on the 10th or 100th or whatever time the pen doesn't touch the ground, I need to discover yet. But I don't say, well, I don't know. So God did it. So science is something we test. That's why scientific principles are always changing, because we find new evidence, and then we adapt, and then we put out new hypotheses, and we test them. Science can be wrong, and it has been wrong, and that's what drives science. You try something, it doesn't work, you try something else. But it's not blind. That's not faith.
So you're willing to put something in that can be proven wrong. You're willing to put your faith into something that can be proven wrong.
I don't use faith.
Okay, then what word do you use?
Science is about knowledge, gaining knowledge. And we test it. If we can't test it, we can't know it.
So you're saying I don't understand.
No,
You didn't answer my question.
Faith is for religious people. It's not for non-religious people.
You're not giving an
So,
answer.
okay, you never answered my question either.
Because it's a nonsensical question. An
No, but
atheist doesn't have faith.
why can you ask me that, but I can't ask you?
Because faith applies to religious people, not to non-religious people.
So
I don't
you're
have
putting-
faith.
Okay, so then let me say this. You're putting your belief into
No, that's
science.
just another word for... No.
No.
A science is
I
not a
can
person.
believe that this pencil will fall.
Okay, now what you're doing is you're using a different word for the word belief.
No,
You're changing
no, that's the exact same thing.
No, it's
Yes,
not. No, it's not.
I believe that the pencil darts the ground. Like
And it did.
So then I
I'm
believe
saying-
that I'll go to heaven.
Okay, but that's not the same thing.
How?
No.
Kicking the dead horse.
No.
Let it go.
Because I can test if, okay, well,
I don't
your pencil
understand.
falls to the ground, maybe mine doesn't. I can test it.
No, it will fall to the ground.
Okay, I can test it though.
So
Yeah.
How do I test if you
But
go
I
to
can
heaven when you die?
believe.
How can I test if you're going to go to heaven when you die? How can I test that?
You don't.
Can't. So it can't be scientific. It's different.
I'm still so confused.
All right, we're almost out of
Okay,
time. We
so,
gotta stop. We gotta stop.
wait, I have one question.
We're out of time. We're out of time.
I didn't even. This is an unwinnable.
I got it.
I still never got an answer to my question.
Nobody got an answer.
He didn't answer any question.
Okay, here's what I need you to do. Wait, don't put your stuff away. Listen. What I want you to do is on your paper right there, anywhere, I want you to grade yourself, whether you ask the question or not. I want you to grade yourself from 0 to 100. Give yourself, if you said, man, I destroyed that atheist, give yourself 100. If you think, man, I just got murdered by the atheist, give yourself a 0. Wait, just listen. Do it right now. If you think you did something in between, like you did, give yourself a quick score. So 50, whatever. Give yourself a score right now. It's just for you. Even? Okay. So, how many of you gave yourself a score of 0 to 25? Okay, thank you. How many of you gave your score from 25 to 50?
I did too.
How many of you gave yourself a score from 50 to 75? How many of you gave yourself 75 to 100? What did you give yourself?
I put an 80.
80? Okay. Now, y'all won. I'm going to tell you why you won, at least in this area. I'm going to tell you how you won.
We the only play.
No. Y'all all won, and I tried hard.